and that's setting it up. That's literally all I've done with all of my IBEEs before running the first print. They all got re-leveled afterwards, but that was the full extent of the setup, minus removing the plastic. This IBEE is going to another group member, so I don't want to take it off, you know, the joy of peeling your own plastic. But I'm going to pull it out, test it out, make sure everything works fine, and then get it onto him. Right, hi everybody, Rob. I've not done a video where I'm on camera before, so I wanted to go over the IBEE a little bit. It's been a while since it was released, but I'm going to do this Buildzoid style, one hot take, no reshoots. So the IBEE is an 8.9 inch printer, has a 192 by 120 by 220 vertical build area. It's about 50 micron resolution, slightly under, which puts it, you know, standard with all the other 8.9 competitors on the market right now, and in line with the 2K 6-inch printers. So they're all going to give roughly the same voxel size, the square. The IBEE, you know, its claim to fame is the phenomenal light source, and the lack of gridding the shadows. I'll put a picture up. When the grid that divides the light and collimates it isn't correct, you end up with shadows, and they can affect prints. They can cause failures. They can create distortions in the print. The IBEE suffers from none of that. It has a very nearly perfectly uniform light output, and as a result is able to produce better detail than most of the printers I've used, and it is capable of producing the same detail level as the 4K 6-inch screens. Where the difference shows up is in the voxel size. So the detail will be present, but when you really look closely at it, you can tell the difference. But that's great, because the other 50 micron printers I have can't even do some of the detail, let alone match what's coming off my 4K 6-inch printers. So this unboxing video I did is literally all I did to set it up. I haven't done nothing else. You watched it, and this is 5 minutes after. I've added some resin to it. I'm going to print a town and a gluttony model by Dark Odds out of this abomination of resin mixture I have here. It's about 6 different resins. Should work. Should. So what else to say? I mean, it's built really well. It's heavy. Everything on the bottom is metal. There's no plastic other than the exhaust vent cover, which has a little filter in it. It has some noise when it's running because it's a couple of high-speed fans, but when it's in another room, it's completely tolerable. It doesn't penetrate walls really, and it sounds, the nearest thing I could approximate it to is a laptop running high load, so that, you know, those high-speed fan noise. It's a steady state sound. You cannot hear the stepper motor unless you get right up to it, press your ear against it, and it's in a silent room other than the printer itself. Then you might get a little stepper noise, but who does that? So right now it still has the normal Uniz film that came with it installed. I want to see how that performs with this resin mixture. I know how this resin mixture performs with normal FEP. So let's see, you know, how does it do with the Uniz provided film? Other than that, I mean, the only thing left is to power it on. So first startup of this machine ever. And it seems to have started as it should. So the power supply is on this side. And if yours doesn't start, all you have to do is take off the 2 screws right here and the 2 screws right here, and then this panel comes off, and there's a little voltage switch inside for 110 or 220. There's a tutorial on the Facebook page that I put up, I think back in February when I first got my machine. All right, so now it's going to want me to go through the initial setup phase. So next, skip, next. So this is where you're able to stop doing the cube or the die. So a lot of people printed this when they first got their machine because they didn't see that you could go back and not print it, whatever. But no, they don't force you into printing it. So this is something as well, a quirk I've learned about the IBEE. If you insert the USB stick right now, right, you can see it light, it was red, and then click on there, it gave the options. Hey, that's a change. My IBEE doesn't do that. So that's great. So what we wanted to run is, this is the my file for the Amerilabs Town and Z-axis calibration file. What I'm going to do is go ahead and run it, and we'll see how close the leveling is. I don't know. I haven't sent this build plate down yet, so you might hear it do the initial movement, that grind when it first hits. I'm learning with you. So as you can see, it does lower pretty quickly. The stepper isn't super slow, so it needs to be re-leveled. That noise tells you it's a little bit too tight. So it comes up and then it'll re-home back to 0 slower to make sure it didn't miss any steps. Okay. And you can see it's printing. I don't know if you can see the color, but it's dropping the first layer now. So I'll let this run. We'll come back, I'll get my calipers, and we'll verify how did this print. Alright, welcome back everyone. It's obviously the next day. I've grown a little hair, changed my clothes. So, yesterday when I left you, we were printing this town and this Z-axis check piece to verify that the Z-axis output on this IBEE is the same as the other two in the garage, and the results are pretty consistent. So with this resin, you probably can't read it, but it's 49.4 millimeters. Yeah. And 49.4 is exactly what I get with this piece when I don't adjust anything as far as scaling goes, and it's the normal deviation I have across all of my machines. So that means this one is entirely consistent in Z-axis height and stepper count. No surprises. Printed this test town and it came out quite well. I'll attach some pictures in the video. So this was a scientific wild ass guess of 2.6 seconds at 50 microns on 6 resins blended together, kind of the remnants I had. They're all good resins, they're all high quality resins, but they're just different materials, and it came out quite nice. It actually printed the 5th row, the spires fully formed, the windows on the top row, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fully open, and number 6 is partially filled, kind of normal. Usually I only get 4 fully open. The middle windows, the 2nd row, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fully open. The comb underneath it, everything's fully formed with minimal sag from the roof, and the grid is touching on the corners, as you would want. So I'd say 2.6 at 50 was right for this resin on the IBEE. And so I started this gluttony model from Dark Gods. So the check is, will this fit together as well as this one fits together, which came off my other IBEE, and it fits together well enough that little pressure and stays together. The gaps are minimal once assembled. You know, once you put the arm on and align it, like, can I see a meaningful gap in there? No, not really. I mean, you can see a gap. It's a seam in material, so you're never going to completely eliminate that, but it is very, very small and is not at all a challenge to fill if you want to fill it and have a perfect model, or just paint. And it will be a low spot on the model, as your armpit and kind of that crease between the pec and delt should be. So machine checks out. This one test print covers the whole plate, has fine detail, has both hollow and solid parts, so if there's something abnormal I'll see it, and the z-axis, this checks the Z movement, and to make sure that there's no weird wobbles or hang points where it creates an abnormal line in it, and it did not. So all of these have been printed on the IBEE, except for that guy who I was just assembling. And you know, they're all different styles of miniature, right? These three are by Dark Gods, this is by Laser Forge, this is by Archvillain Games. They're all great. I have no qualms about using the IBEE as my personal printer or in my store that I run online, and I do so. The two in the garage have been running for 2 weeks, 24/7, without so much as a reboot, and I haven't had a hitch yet. They've been running consistently, and they have not been getting fed consistent resin. I've been doing some experimenting with mixing stuff, and the machines haven't missed a beat. Overall, why do I like the IBEE so much? Well, I mean, it's really simple, right? Every machine at this price point or less has quirks about it, period, all of them. And for anyone out there who says, oh, my machine works perfectly, yeah, that might be true, but I guarantee somebody else owns that machine, and something about that machine isn't working for that person. And that's universal across all of them, whether it's user error or it's a nuance of use that those of you who aren't having problems don't see because you're not using it in a way that triggers it. They all have quirks. The quirks about the IBEE, to me, are easier to overcome than other machines. The hardware is fine, which means I don't have to mess with this, and from there I can do it all in software. And I find software fixes much easier to achieve than hardware fixes. Because that's about knowledge, right? You just figure out, you have to learn and understand what works to fix the software challenge, and then the hardware will do its part. So as you can see, this machine's finishing up this print right now. So it's going to move up and drain. So the things I really like about the IBEE are the way that the vat's held in with the 4 sprung switches, I'll call them. I don't know what else to call them. They're just little sprung retaining ovals that take tension to move over the vat, and they hold it in place. And there you go, fan turns off when it's done. So the only thing I would recommend upon receiving the IBEE is run the test print with the FEP that's included, the film, It's a 0.1 millimeter film, whatever that means. I think it's FEP. I think it's just thin FEP, but okay. The other two things I would do are lube the linear rail, this silver part right here, directly below my hand right here, and lube the lead screw. Aside from that, there are no hardware changes I recommend other than leveling, and that's a universal recommendation. All machines should be leveled. There is manufacturing difference between all of the machines of a specific model, and because of that manufacturing tolerance, there's going to be a need to level them. Without getting distracted, trying to stay on track, metal body construction, power supply integrated in the machine instead of having another power brick. I really like that. God knows I have too many power bricks already in my printing area, between all the heaters, all the machines, the lights, the cleaning stuff, everything else seems to have a power brick. I actually appreciate only having a cord. Nothing else is kind of nice. The fact that it's dual voltage is nice, and it's about a 5-minute job to switch voltages. Should you end up with a machine that's the incorrect voltage for your area. Okay, let's talk about networking. I don't use networking. I will not use networking. I will not test networking. I will not troubleshoot networking. I do not care about networking on printers, and I have no reason to use it on them, nor do I have any desire to use it on them. To me, it's another layer of complexity on a very complicated network I already have. It's another potential point of failure on something that I have already achieved the ability to print on consistently in high quality. Why introduce another variable and another point of failure? So I just stick with the USB stick. It's my preference. The UI, I think, looks a lot better than the competitors' products right now. The only functionality I wish it had is the ability to change settings in a print file that's already on a memory stick. For example, certain machines allow you to change layer exposure time, bottom exposure time, lift speed, and light off delay. If you could change those on the IBEE, that would be a really nice touch to the overall package. In particular, that's nice when you're printing large things like this that take some time to slice. And all I want to do is throw it from one IBEE to the next, on the memory stick, and not change resins if they have separate resins. But I know the exposure times for both. So ideally, I could just take the stick out and put it in the other machine, lower or raise the exposure time to the appropriate amount to print this on the other machine with the other resin, and off I go. I can't do that, so it means you have to slice everything with the time for that resin that you intend to use it. Fine for a hobbyist in a commercial application. So when you're trying to run multiples of the same thing, and maybe not in the same materials or colors, it's a small annoyance that can eat a little bit of your time. Other than that, the UI does not have a stop button during movement. Not a huge deal. You just reach back here and hit the power switch, plate stops. Let me think what else. You can't manually move the plate outside of sending it to home and then lifting it back up. You have raise controls, you have no lower controls. Generally, that's not an issue. The only time I could see it really, what I would use it for most is when I lubricate the lead screw, being able to lift it and lower it to spread the lubrication across the lead screw. Because I use PTFE lube, which dries and leaves a Teflon coating. So you want to spread it while it's still wet, so that when it dries and leaves a residue across the lead screw evenly. Not a huge deal. I mean, you can achieve the same thing by hitting home, laying it down, lifting it back up. It'd just be nice to be able to, the way the other printers do it. So yeah, I mean, overall, this is my favorite 8.9 printer on the market. The others I own have been sold, or one of them sits on my garage floor unused, partially taken apart, because it is so inconsistent in its performance that I won't sell it to anybody, because I guarantee they're going to come back and be like, hey, it doesn't work. Like, no, it does work. You just need to enter a quirk of that machine that I was talking about. And so, you know, once you learn your machine and its quirks, whatever model it is, and you become consistent with that machine, you start to gain confidence in that machine, as long as it's performing consistently. And I think that's where and why the IBEE garnered so much of my favor is, you know, this machine I've done nothing to. I literally put it together, printed a town and an axis, changed nothing, and then printed that. And I didn't do anything. I still haven't re-leveled it. I wanted to see what happens if I don't re-level it and let it do that first layer crunch noise. Will it affect the print? Because I've never allowed it to do that before. And no, I mean, I can tell you from looking at this right now, everything on it completed exactly as it should, because I can see the weakest points on the model from here, and it is exactly what it should be. So look, if you're in the market for an 8.9 between, you know, when they're on sale, $599 up to $900, you have a limited selection of printers. Of the selection, one is a company that has atrocious customer service and will treat you like a complete idiot and make you jump through a bunch of hoops before they'll even address the problem you're having. Another is a company that probably won't respond to your support email, period. And if they do, see company one and treat you like a complete idiot. So that's two of them gone. One of them is a problematic machine. One of them is a great machine. It has questionable functionality with anti-aliasing. So if you're somebody who likes prints that don't have visible layer lines on them, or you like to minimize the layer lines because you're a painter, and in particular, if you paint models like this that have, they're hard surface models, so they're armor plates, I would not recommend a machine that doesn't have working anti-aliasing. You can get plenty sharp models. You can get models that are plenty sharp using anti-aliasing and reducing the layer lines while maintaining all that detail. It's all there. It doesn't go away, at least not on the IBEE. So if you like anti-aliasing, one of your options is already gone. If you don't care about anti-aliasing, you only print organic stuff like this, it's not as much of an issue, because models like this have a natural tendency to hide aliasing. So you can see on this base, actually, that brings me to the third model in this lineup, in this price category and size. And I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there is significant distortion in this base, not the leading edge part, where there are lines right here. And that's from the light grid, and that's from a flawed light source. So that's your third option gone. So all three, right? One, you can't do anti-aliasing. One is the worst customer service known to man. And there's not a lot of feedback on the machines yet because they're not super popular. People aren't buying it. And the third one, bad light source, no anti-aliasing if you care about hard surface models. And the third one is kind of a wild card still. I have not seen good things said about it, but I have not seen a whole lot of bad things said about it. And it comes with the tax of being the worst customer service company known to man. You'll notice I haven't said names. That's because I want you to go research which machines have which issues and make your decision based on your needs. Do you want distorted models with light grade issues? Cool. Buy that machine. Do you want models that don't have that have working anti-aliasing and a support channel that will actually answer your emails? Buy the IBEE. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on it, on why this machine is the machine that I recommend. And outside of this one, the only other machine I would recommend is the one that appears on Amazon and is gone like that because it's in such high demand at MSRP. I watched 17 sell out in 10 minutes yesterday while I was thinking about whether or not to pick one up. So that machine no longer has light gridding issues. That machine has working anti-aliasing, and that machine is absurdly low priced for what it is, which is great. I mean, that's a great thing, but it's hard to get. So if you can get one, enjoy it, cool. If not, the only other option I would consider in this format is this machine. So yeah, I mean, leave your questions on the Facebook group, Uniz IBEE Owners, and I will get back to you. Yeah. Also, keep an eye on Uniz. There's something coming. I don't know all the details yet, and I can't say all of what I know, but there is something coming. And a last final note. So this machine was purchased by somebody on the Facebook group and sent to me so that I could bring it to him. And the two in the garage I paid for out of pocket. None of these machines were given to me. It is not a paid review. It is not a sponsored review. These are my thoughts and mine alone, independent of corporate influence. So yeah, I mean, that brings me to what's coming, right? So what's coming soon? We've seen a number of printers announced by other companies at the recent convention that was held. And they look kind of interesting, right? 6K at 9 inches. DLP in this size format. Sounds kind of interesting too. And then we know there's another lower micron size printer coming in roughly this format. And then one in small format from another company, probably the biggest company at this point. So it's definitely worth keeping your eye out over this summer to see what's actually coming. Because at this point, while this machine didn't make it into 2 users until 2021, it was a little bit late. That's unfortunate because, in my opinion, this one is the best of them in this format. But it means that the lifespan potentially will be shorter, potentially. We'll have to wait and see what kind of issues some of these other machines have. I've yet to see a printer release that went smoothly initially without problems that required revisions so far. Except for the IBEE, which I have the very first batch sent out and it still performs exactly like the day I got it. I have about 1,500 hours on that screen now and no issues. So we'll see. I mean, 2021 is going to bring change. I think we'll really start to see a lot of innovation next year. So yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to be buying more of them. They will be stacked up and farming my, filling my farm until I see a technology come forward that I think is a game changer and not a small increment in technology. Because what's been announced so far, I feel like it's a small increment and not a game changer because we don't know the specs on most of it. So anyways, this got longer than I meant to. I'm trying to do single hot takes. I'm not editing. So you make your choice. this is my preference.